Hello, everyone. Hopefully, this is going to all work. If not, in about 30 seconds, my phone's going to start ringing and people are going to tell me that I forgot to, I don't know, not mute myself or I'm sharing the wrong screen or something along those lines because something almost always goes wrong whenever I try and do a live stream after having not done it for quite some time. So, been a funny couple of weeks actually. The whole world is affected by something that started as a news item late last year and has snowballed into something that's had an enormous effect across the world. And Steamforged is absolutely one of those companies that is affected. And one of the reasons why we're doing this series of live streams is because I should be at AdeptiCon right now, and I'm not, and it makes me sad. And AdeptiCon is one of my favourite shows of the year. I love hanging out with all of the guys there. Get to see all the games being played. I love the displays that they do on a Saturday, the work that people put in all year, and I can only feel sorrow and sadness for those people who put in all that effort to create some amazing display pieces and not get the chance to show them off. I'm also sad not to catch up with all my friends from, ostensibly the Chicago area, but people travel to AdeptiCon from all over the place. So, how's Steamforged affected? Well, like everyone, we're in complete shutdown here in the UK. We're in a complete lockdown situation, so the HQ is completely shut. The warehouse, we keep flip-flopping backwards and forwards as the different bits of advice from the government come through as to what we can and can't do. But we're looking to keep those online sales and those kind of channels open to people as best we possibly can. But, the thing that's most important to us, as it is to everyone else, is how we look after our staff and how we look after our customers. So that's the thing that's taking all of our priority. Obviously, Rich and myself and the other people on the senior team are behind the scenes doing what we feel is necessary and is right for the business to kind of keep things going in these uncertain terms. But we're still open online. We're still delivering orders when the warehouse is open, and we're going to continue to do that as much as we possibly can. Basically, what we want to do is to take advantage, I guess, of everyone being at home and hang out with you guys a bit more. I know I've been playing a lot more D&D online. I've managed about 4 sessions this week already, which is pretty sweet. It's way more than normal. I've absolutely fallen in love with Zoom, which I think is one of the best voiceover IPs that I've tried. And if you haven't tried it, it's well worth getting an account and trying that out. And one of the things that we have been having a close look at is accelerating some of our plans with regard to getting some of our games online and into the digital space. And Russ and the sculpting team, or I should say the 3D team now, have been beavering away at something that hopefully we'll get to talk about in more detail next week. But as a sort of sneaky teaser, getting God Tier onto Tabletopia really is looking like a reality for like I say, next week. What else have I got to talk about? I've got a list here, which is why I'm looking down, because everyone's desperate for me to kind of communicate a whole bunch of stuff. There'll be a bunch of time for questions at the end. I'm more than happy to answer just about everything. So we're running the live streams just so we can, not lose touch with people, so we don't feel lonely sitting at home, so the community still can grow and hang out with each other and talk about things. There's a load more online content that we're going to put together. I rather suspect that the COVID-19 situation is going to last a lot longer than the current 3-week shutdown that we have here in the UK. It's we're in for months and months of this, not necessarily just weeks and weeks. So if we can get ourselves set up so we can hang out and stream and a little bit later on I'm going to do some painting. I know Russ is doing some sculpting and Sherwin's obviously going to be talking and doing his background and sort of story content for Guildborn God Tier over the weekend as well. So this works quite nicely, right? It's pretty easy to set up, so we're going to do a lot more of this stuff. So let's talk about a couple of games. So let's talk about Guild Ball and let's talk about God Tier. So Guild Ball is obviously our first love and continues to be. It is a source of frustration, sadness, amusement, not happiness, unfortunately, but a whole mixture of emotions when you see how I got distracted by a message that I'm so tempted to read out, but apparently I'm not allowed to say anything about them. It makes me sad to see how people are concerned and how people are worried about a game that they clearly love as much as we do. Now, as I said on the Singled Out podcast a week or so ago, which if you haven't heard, download, subscribe. Andrew and the guys do some fantastic work on there. And I had a chance to hang out with them for an hour or so and chat about Guild Ball and what's going on there. There's a load more detail in there in that podcast than I can cover in the short space of time that I have here. But Guild Ball's not going away. All right, and that's the long and short of it. It's a game that's too important to us. It's a game that's too near and dear to our hearts. Now, like a lot of things, though, there is an ascendancy and a descendancy, and Guild Ball, you know, it's no surprise to anyone, is plateauing and probably on a bit of a downward trend at the moment, and that's entirely natural. And when Rich and I first started talking about Guild Ball, 6, 7, 8 years ago, however long ago it was, we recognised that there would be a life cycle, and Guild Ball in its current form is without a doubt one of the cleanest set of rules that I've seen or played. The models are balanced to within an ounce of their lives, so it represents one of the greatest playing fields for competitive play in the miniature space right now, and is a true test of your skill, ability, and experience with playing the game. So if you win a game, you won it because you deserve to, and if you lost, well, the opposite is also true. So that gives us an amazingly stable platform, a launch pad for us to launch Guild Ball into whatever direction we want. And we can carry on going in the same direction if we choose to do so. There is minor guilds that we still have yet to do. We have almost unlimited options with regard to taking existing minor guilds, growing them into full guilds, taking a minor guild, smashing it into the parent guild and creating a one big mega guild, or even coming up with just brand new guilds. So, Guild Ball was designed to give us a huge amount of design space in that regard. And I've been working on a couple of funky ideas that in kind of closed door playtesting are actually an awful lot of fun. And these are some ideas that you guys have seen in the past. Some of you will remember that we have put out a few ideas and shared them with the community to get some feedback. And some of them are brand new ideas. Now, look, when we put these ideas out, the feedback that we got, the engagement we got, and the excitement that people felt about the game and about this kind of new feature was brilliant. It was a lot of fun, and it's something that we're going to look to replicate this year as I want to test out a few different ideas and a few different directions that we could go with Guild Ball. And I think it's important to stress that right now Guild Ball represents a game that belongs to all of us. It's not just mine and Rich's anymore. It's certainly not even just mine, Rich's, Jamie's and Bryce's. It's everybody's. So it's important that everybody has an involvement in what we're going to do going forward. Like I say, Sherwin's going to start talking some Guild Ball lore on Sunday. This year we're going to get to bring the current story arc to a shattering conclusion, which I'm really looking forward to, because you guys have been playing Guild Ball for a long time. You know that Sherwin and I have been working on this storyline for 6 or 7 years now, and this arc we had pretty much in our mind's eye the story that we wanted to tell and how we wanted to tell it mapped out very early on in the process. So it's been an extraordinary feat of patience for us to not spoil it and enjoy the ride. And one of the wonderful things is the way the story in the world has grown and evolved almost organically out of our control, but yet we're still being able to tell this kind of core story. So I'm really excited to see the final, delivery of that particular story. And there is definitely an ending, but there is also definitely, like all good stories, the hints of what might come next. So listen into Sherwin when he streams. I think he's streaming on Sunday, and keep an eye out on the Steamforged Twitter and Facebook pages. On mine, or it's the other way down there. I'm also quite happy to chat about stuff on my Twitter, and almost because it's unofficial, probably will be able to talk about more on there than I'm supposed to. So if you don't follow me on Twitter, do so, and we'll start sharing some of this Guild Ball story going forward. Production schedule will slow down a little bit for Guild Ball. We've got the Shepherds coming out this year. The behind the scenes, we're converting all of the legacy teams into that high quality resin that we developed and are happy with now. It took a couple of false starts, which did put a few air bubbles into the system. No escaping that fact, but I'm absolutely not going to sign off on something that I don't think is top tier quality. And some of the early resins weren't where I wanted them to be. And the guys in the production team did some amazing work in sourcing new partners and new processes to make sure that quality is there. Right now, I think there's about 8 or 9 of the existing teams available in resin. So if you are looking for something to do while you're sitting at home bored, well, buy a team, paint a team, be ready for when we're all allowed out to play again. Hopefully, look, Monday there's going to be a small errata coming out, a few little tweaks to some rules here and there, just to keep the balance and the gameplay ticking along as we want it to. And then over the next coming months, we'll start playing with some more wacky ideas about where we can go. I will do questions shortly, but right now I'm concentrating on you guys and these notes, and then I'll start flipping over to where the questions are. So let's talk about God Tier for a wee while. So God Tier, for those of you who don't know, and I'm hoping that some people have joined the stream who were going to attend AdeptiCon but didn't necessarily know who Steamforged are or what we do. AdeptiCon was going to be a really big show for us for God Tier. We had put start sets into the VIG bags. We'd put champions into the rest of the goodie bags that the other attendees get. We're working with the guys at AdeptiCon as to how we can get those out to those of you who should have been attending. And what we historically have seen when we do things like that is a huge amount of interest and a huge amount of people coming to our stand or our booth and finding out a little bit more about it. And we had an army of well-trained demo guys and girls to show you how God Tier works and how easy it is to pick up. So we're going to try and do that. And one of the ways that we're going to do that, as I alluded to beforehand, is as we start to roll out the digital version, there'll be a series of streams and live demos, as it were, to show you how to play God Tier and get you involved in it. God Tier is a tactical skirmish game. It's played on a small table size. It's a hex-based game, so there's no measurements. It's super swift to move things around. It plays in 5 turns or less, guaranteed, mathematically. Most games, once you know what you're doing, take about 40 to 50 minutes. They shouldn't really go much longer than an hour. And it's a faction-free system. So you can look at the range of minis that are available to you, and the minis are phenomenal. Russ and the team have done some brilliant work, and we spent quite a lot of time and effort, and I'll show you in a stream a little bit later on, in making sure that we sculpt these minis in a way that they're super easy to paint. They are almost perfect. In fact, they are perfect for contrast style painting. So if you guys are using the contrast paints, albeit or whether it's over a white base coat or whether you're doing some more fancy stuff, these minis take it beautifully because the detail is solid, chunky, and definitely is designed to take a wash. So you can grab whatever 3 champions you like the look of. Guess what? They will all play together. There will be some combos that are a little bit stronger than others, and that's part of the fun of the fair, is trying to discover new combos and new ways of playing it. we like to keep you on your toes though. So there are 5 scenarios in the basic or in the starter set. But as those of you who backed us on Kickstarter and have seen the recently released campaign system for that, we have a huge amount of headroom with regard to coming up with new scenarios and new ways of playing the game that feels really natural and feels very easy to adapt. So at its essence, it's a you go, I go game. There are 2 key phases. In the first phase, if I'm going first, I will move and activate all of my champions and their followers first in their entirety, so at an army level, and then my opponent will then get to do all of those, and then we'll zoom the camera in. So that's like more of your widescreen kind of battlefield mode. And then when we get down to the nitty gritty of the action, you zoom right in, and then as you go, I go with single model or single unit activation. So I might activate a unit of followers, then you get to go, and then I'll activate my champion, then you get to go, and we'll just kind of revolve through there. So that is the plot phase leading into the clash phase. It is very much a objective-based game. The scenarios are designed in a way that they are the same scenarios each time you play them, but every time you play them, they will be different and unique for that exact situation, because the scenario grows organically and randomly through the game. So that means that you need to be able to react and keep on your toes. So God Tier is a wonderful game. Every time I play it, and I know I am biased, but those of you who know me quite well know that I exist in 2 kind of time spaces. One is the right now when I'm chatting with you guys about a game that I kind of did my bit on about a year or so ago. And then there's the part of me that remembers that I'm quite old and I have a bad memory and I can't quite remember what version of the rules we're playing. So I keep coming back to games like God Tier for fun, because my kind of part of the work is done. And that, the development of ongoing champions is now firmly with the development team. And just because I saw a couple of comments about this on a Reddit thread, there is ongoing support for God Tier. God Tier is going to become one of our key titles in the same way that Guild Ball is. There are at least 9 champions that you guys haven't seen in development right now, in various stages. They are going to be rolling out in regular releases. We are going to grow the meta and the pool of champions available. And as we talked about during the Kickstarter, we are going to be looking to create a healthy OP landscape by maintaining and pruning and trimming and basically cycling the champions as we need to make sure that the meta is strong and healthy, so we don't get stuck in a single combo that seems to do everything. By the way, that's not possible. There's 4 types of champions and you're only allowed 3. So whatever 3 champions you come with me and say, Matt, that's the most perfect combo that you could possibly have. I just need to come up with a combo that has one of the other guys in, and then suddenly you're in a spot of bother for certain scenarios. So it is how you play the game, it's how you prepare for the game, and it's how your dice roll, which for me is a wonderful and perfect blend of skill, experience, and actual gameplay. So super excited about God Tier. Do wish that I was in Chicago playing it with hundreds of new faces and hundreds of old faces, and getting really excited about and getting quite nerdy about this fantastic new game that we've come out with. Let's have a quick look, just make sure I haven't missed anything else. So we've got some streams coming up. So tomorrow, Russ is going to be doing some live sculpting. I know he is doing banner, I want to say. No, even better than that. He is doing an alt sculpt for one of my favourite models of last year, which is the PVC version of Rangosh, who I may even be painting for the 14th time this afternoon. So I love painting Rangosh. He's brilliant. So I'm absolutely going to paint him again in the Red Bandits. I am going to try, I don't think I'm going to be able to do it, but I'm going to try and see if I can't get Rangosh and the Red Bandits to a tabletop standard in about an hour. We'll see how we go. It's possibly warm enough for the washes to dry fast enough for us to be able to do that. We'll see how we go. So Russ is going to do an alternative version of that. And those of you who have played the campaign that came with the Kickstarter know that one of the awesome features about our campaign system is you get to level up your champions as you progress through the campaign. And one of the early decisions you need to do when you choose to level up a champion is choose a path. God Tier is a game that is based entirely on champions exploring the land, looking for these crystals of an awesome power, and trapped inside each of the crystals is the essence of the fallen gods. And as a champion finds it, he absorbs the power, she absorbs the power, and then they start to take on they start to personify those particular gods. So you need to decide, do you want a death Rangosh or a life Rangosh? You know, have you started to follow the path of the death god or the life god? And so very early on, you're picking which way you want to go, and then you start to level up through that process, which means that it's super open for people to do amazing conversions of, you know, core Rangosh. But, you know, Russ has the power to do it all in 3D, and then we can kind of whack it on the 3D printer and have a bit of fun with it. So I'm looking forward to that. I think he's also going to do I don't know if he's actually going to do it in Unreal or not, or whether he's just going to do it in Photoshop. But we're going to show how we go through the process of creating a battle board, I think. So that'll be cool. What else have we got? We've got, live sculpting, map building. I'm painting, and there'll obviously be a load more chat in that. So Russ will probably be in that particular stream, hanging out and helping, you know, answer any questions. And I'll be doing vice versa with him while he's doing his sculpting tomorrow. Like I say, virtual God Tier is going to be a thing. So expect a lot more action on that in terms of us talking with you guys about how to do it, some tutorials. And what I am trying to do is scare up enough people on our side to actually get involved with the campaign. But it would be awesome if we could open up the campaign to the entire community and try and get a big mega God Tier campaign going sometime in the next few weeks or so. So that's pretty much it, right? They're the two things that I really wanted to talk about. I'm more than happy to answer questions about any of the other products that we've got going on. You know, you guys know that we do a lot of video game adaptations. Was in Mexico City a few weeks back announcing Gears of War card game in conjunction with the Microsoft esports scene. That was phenomenal. Amazing experience, really well received. Super excited about that game. Horizon Zero Dawn is obviously in full production at the moment. We're, you know, working hard with the factories to ascertain as to what the, you know, the production schedules are looking like now, you know, as the factories start to come back online more and more. And you know, we've got all the existing games that we've got. So happy to answer any questions right now. Does anyone want to dolly me one up? Come on, Giblin, help me out. I'm going to have a slurp of tea while it all catches up. Right. When is the next Dungeons and Doggos? So we did Gullet Cove at the beginning of the year, and that was brilliant. Awful lot of fun. What we want to do with the Animal Adventures line is make sure that it's kept to the high standard, that it's kept to being delivered, and then we work on new stuff. So right now we have enough to get our teeth into. Oh, I'm going to write that down. No, so I've distracted myself completely there with a terrible pun. No, we've got enough to get our teeth into. We are going to deliver Gullet Cove. We are also working on pulling together some of the other bits and pieces that those of you who were at Gen Con last year may have got to play through. There will be a bunch of digital content coming out to help people play Animal Adventures content in their D&D game, or indeed an entirely Animal Adventures adventure. So that will all be coming out over the next few weeks or so. Right, what do we got now? Who's going to be the Blacksmiths minor team? That's a good question. Blacksmiths minor team? I know who they are. What I'm doing is pausing for dramatic effect because I know there's going to be a load of people panicking, which does make me laugh. I have always loved the town guard from the Discworld novels, and that is definitely a visual that I would like to capture, and I think that they could work really nicely with a blacksmith. So I would not be surprised if that was an angle that we went down. Let's have a look. When can we expect a skirmish game based on the Guild Ball system using doggos and cats as characters? Jan, you are a crazy, crazy man. I don't know if there will ever be an official version of that, but I definitely like the idea of an unofficial version, and I, for one, would definitely play it. Have I considered expanding the Guild Ball rule set into a skirmish war game with scenarios that show the battles the guilds fight on the pitch? Yes, I have. This has internally been labelled Guild Brawl, and we've talked about this quite a number of times, and there's a lot going for it. The Guild Ball core system is really quite strong and an awful lot of fun to play with. I'm worried about how that would overlap with Guild Ball itself, and I don't know if I've got to the end of my thinking in that regard. But the fact that the engine is so clean and would work brilliantly at a larger scale game is definitely something that we are always discussing and thinking about and trying to work out how we're going to do that. Time frame on the new God tier releases. So I don't know precisely when the next batch are coming out, but I know that we are going to be releasing 2 or 3 every quarter is the intention. I don't know from when that starts. Obviously, the current situation has kind of balked things a little bit. I think it was supposed to start April or May for the next batch of releases, but I am far from the expert on specific dates like that. So do check on Steamforged on Facebook or Twitter or our blog, and those updates there will have the actual factual information. Are there plans to extend other brands into an RPG universe, i.e. 5e supplement for the Guild Ball universe? Yeah, good question. Those of you who do follow me on Twitter know that I am definitely getting my role-playing jam on at the moment. We're working on some brilliant products for predominantly RPG use. A Guild Ball RPG would be a great thing. A God tier RPG, I mean, God tier universe is absolutely nailed on for a classic fantasy setting. In terms of the immediate future, not yet, but they are definitely things. I don't know how au fait you guys may or may not be with kind of project management methodology, but we use a backlist or a backlog system. So every time someone has a great idea for something we do, it goes onto the backlog so it doesn't get forgotten. And then we constantly kind of groom it. So we go through the list, we prioritize it, we identify the things that we want to do, and the stronger ideas filter up towards the top, and the weaker ideas kind of hover around the middle or the bottom. So the RPG list is long, healthy, and full of things like, we could do a God tier RPG, we could do a Guild Ball RPG, but right now they're not at the top of the list. Will there be a Shepherd's release for Vet Honor and Bushel, something like the old release event kits, or a rookie for Bushel? Honestly, Harold, I don't know off the top of my head. Ping Jamie Giblin on Twitter or on Facebook, and he can follow up on that. I truly don't know where the guys have got to with that. How are we supporting our employees through the current pandemic? So we have a number of our guys. So what we've had to do is look at what we've got in development, what we've got coming out, what we've got to support, and what we need to keep doing in order for the business to keep going. And with that in our mind's eye, we've looked to be as sensible as we can about who do we actually really need. And actually that's an awful phraseology. Who do we actually really need for the work that we think is absolutely essential, and what work could we actually press the pause button on, and therefore alleviate any pressure or stress on people who are trying to work from home with their, the other people in their household also trying to work from home. Steamforged is quite fortunate insofar as a huge chunk of our development team is actually online already. Ian Sherwin are based down here in London. Russ and the 3D team are they're in the Holy Triangle around Winchester and Leamington Spa Way. Our art team's down on the south coast, as is a good chunk of our commercial team and our business development team. So we're already used to working from home, but what we recognise is how difficult it is for people who are used to going into the office, into the studio, and suddenly that now they're sitting at home staring into a computer, wishing their home internet connection was a little bit better. So we recognise that, and we want to alleviate that stress. So, and it's the stress on the business as well. So those of us who are deemed essential to keep the lights on, we're still working as normal. And those people who aren't needed for those core essential projects right now are at home protecting themselves, self-isolating. We do have Slack channels, Discord channels, Zoom channels. We have all sorts and every way of staying in touch with each other. So we are one family and we just try and stay in touch and make sure that we keep each other's spirits up. But we're looking after everyone as best we possibly can. What else have I got? Rangosh RPG is going to happen. Yeah. Hold on. I've lost my place now. What's the plan for release of all miners' guilds? Can you give us a teaser for Monday to hold us over? Something from the errata. Do you know, that was the little message that came through that disrupted me, which was in capital letters, do not talk about the errata. So I can't. As much as I'd like to, I can't. Thresher got buffed. I'm pretty sure. All right, there's your teaser. I'm pretty sure Thresher did not get buffed. There isn't enough buff left in the tin for Thresher to get any more. When can we expect more written stories for Guild Ball? So that's going to be coming out in the, like I say, this next couple of months, really. The story's written. We're trying to work out how we want to deploy it, what might be a fun way of sharing the story and telling it. But yeah, that's going to start coming out in and alongside the Shepherds as and when we start getting those released. Can you tell us anything more about the Entertainers? Tapping the Brewers of First Love. Seems a while since we've heard anything about their minor guild. Well, look, the Entertainers are still the minor guild for the Brewers. It's still a guild that's in development. There are a few visuals going around. There are a couple of different directions that we've looked at with the visual direction and also the nature of the gameplay. And that is just part of the ongoing development, playtesting and balancing phase at this moment in time. So the next minor release will be Entertainers or Lamplighters. That's a really good, professionally asked reporter-style question, because it doesn't leave me any wriggle room to kind of ignore the question altogether. Can you tell us anything? No, that's mean, isn't it? I don't honestly know what the next minor release is, because it's so important for us to make sure that when we release models into a game like Guild Ball, that they are properly play tested and they are properly balanced. Sometimes things that we think are done, we then discover an issue with, and that sets it back a period of time. And our playtest cycles for a game like Guild Ball are actually quite long because of the number of other variables against which models need to be tested. So unfortunately, the more models that come out for Guild Ball, the longer and harder it gets to playtest. That is slightly offset, obviously, by our growing and increasing kind of skill and awareness of an understanding of the game, but it is an exponential complexity curve that we need to work with. So if I told you right now that it was the Lamplighters, next week that could literally be completely wrong, and they could be out of the picture. So I'm not going to you know, choose either way. That's literally where we're at. Can I tell us anything about the Gears of War card game? Release date, price point, Kickstarter. So, if you had asked me that in Mexico, yes, I absolutely could have told you all of those things. Unfortunately, since that, which was about 3 weeks ago, seems crazy to kind of say it, but 3 weeks ago I had a clear picture, and now I have a much less clear picture. Microsoft, like a lot of companies, are all working from home. They're all in isolation, and there is obviously an associated disruption to how quickly and easily they are able to get things like artwork and graphic design and layout of rule books and all that kind of stuff finalized. So the intention is for it to be a really sensible price point. I mean, if you take a look at Dark Souls, the card game, for example, that'll give you a pretty good idea of where we're thinking about with this particular product. We were hoping to get it out sooner rather than later, but I rather suspect that it's going to drift towards next year as things currently stand. But, part of the fun of the current situation is the ever-changing landscape and having to be nimble and react as we go along. So, the Gears of War card game is a phenomenal amount of fun. It's actually interesting because we created it for a really cool two-player campaign experience that you could play multiple different ways and multiple different times. There's a lot of replayability in it. And then what we've found is Sherwin and Fraser and Tyler from oh God, my mind's gone back. Tyler from the Gears of War team, who's also played a major part in designing and developing this game. We've actually got a really tight, fun, competitive card game at its heart as well. So there's a lot of headroom in this particular product line. So sooner we can get it out, the better. Right now, I couldn't possibly tell you, but over the few weeks, over the next few weeks or so, as we chat more often, I'm sure more and more information will become available. Are the entertainers actually going to be models playing other captains? If so, can you spoil any captains that are being played by the entertainers? So, yeah, that was always the intention. So the two visual directions I've wanted to explore with the entertainers is one where they are fairly nondescript looking actors, but they are holding like a BAFTA style mask, and that mask is a caricature of one of the captains. I quite like that look. So as they're playing, they're kind of, I don't know, got like a shark mask, and they put the shark mask over, and they're dressed like shark, and they're kind of acting like shark out on the playing field. That's one way I like it. The other one I really like the visual direction for is, have you seen the big head mode of it's Draven skin on League of Legends? So if you Google Draven skin, it's basically big head mode on Draven. So they got like big paper mache head and stuck it on him. I quite like the idea of a big paper mache shark head stuck on top of a small little actor body. But then when I was developing video games, I always had a really weird soft spot for big head mode. I don't quite know why. I think it's because I'm a child of the 80s. And big head mode was one of those kind of secret unlocks where you go left, right, up, down, A, B, left, right, up, down, and you get big head mode. But that might just be me. What do you say to people who long since think you've given up on meaningfully supporting Guild Ball? They're wrong. I mean, we have a lot of stuff going on at Steamforged. Rich and I both think and believe strongly that a healthy company is a company that has a diverse portfolio. I don't think a single product company is a particularly healthy or particularly stable position to put a company into. So it's important for us to be able to attract the kind of talent that we want to attract, to build the kind of team that we want to be able to build, for us to have a healthy and diverse portfolio. And the reason why that's important is the bigger the team is that we have at Steamforged, the more of a melting pot of ideas and different perspectives and different cultures and different people's gaming experiences are all kind of brought into the mix. And it's amazing how many times, we've got a chap called Richard August who joined us ostensibly to develop on our role-playing lines. He's mad keen on playing Guild Ball and God Tier, and suddenly his ideas and his perspectives are now feeding into a lot of the ideation process for the development of, essentially, war games or minis games. So all of that being said, and that's a choice, and I can definitely see an argument for focusing on a single game and staying small and focusing on that. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but what I am saying is for Rich and I, we believe firmly in a wider portfolio of games. And we've certainly shown, I think, if you look at the review scores of the games that we've put out, that Steamforged has created a team or has developed a team that is capable of creating some good games, some really good games, and across a wide variety of different types of games. So how does that kind of pertain to where we're at with Guild Ball? Well, Guild Ball was our first game. It was the first thing that Rich and I cut our teeth on, and it was the first opportunity for us to make a whole bunch of mistakes. And some you learn from, and some you need to make a couple of times over before you learn from them. But slowly but surely we learn and we get better, and we correct directions that we want to go in to start delivering the kind of experience that we think gamers should expect and deserve. And we are in a long lead business, and sometimes a decision that we make today won't actually realize itself out in the public for a year or more. So when I see comments like that, they make me sad. And they make me sad not because, boo-hoo, my feelings are hurt. They actually make me sad because I'm worried about why does that person feel. I don't want people to feel upset. I don't want people to feel a little bit lost and unsure of what's going on. I want people to, enjoy their hobby and it to be a source of joy and happiness for them, not a source of frustration and anxiety. I don't think that's healthy for anyone. So I understand that people can look at evidence or behaviours or things that they see out in the wide world and draw conclusions. I don't think the conclusions are always correct, and I don't think it's possible to draw a correct conclusion without all of the facts and figures at your fingertips. So, right now, Guild Ball is very much alive. We have gone through the entire process of converting all the legacy teams into resin. That's a lengthy process and a significant investment, and that's there. We have erratas going on. We have a new team coming out. We have season 5 story coming out. We have internal discussions that we're going to start sharing with you about new features and gameplay mechanics that we're going to start considering and working out how we want to roll those out. It's pretty far from being a dead product. So, like I say, don't worry about that stuff. Please don't make yourselves anxious about it. It's simply not true, and people who hawk that are wrong. They're just wrong. What else have I got? Let's have a look. If you can't talk about Ra, talk about the Lampliers. I'm pretty sure I've got past that. Do you know what's really annoying? Is it keep... Thanks for the assurances about Guild Ball. Yeah, no, you're welcome, man. Like, when's the next Minotaur champion coming from God Tier, and why is he named Rongash? Rongash is one of the best names ever. He would have to be like a football manager style champion. Rongash, manager of the Red Bandit United. I don't know, actually. So, I love the Minotaurs. I think Ben sculpted Rangosh. He did such an awesome job on him. I would like to see more Minotaurs for sure, but it's not going to be for the next little while. Like I say, I know what the next 9 champions are, and not one of them is a Minotaur yet. So it's not going to be for a little while, I'm afraid. Any Resident Evil themed news you can discuss, Matt Stevens? I think there's obviously a lot of excitement in the dev team that worked on Resident Evil 2, the board game. about the upcoming release of Resident Evil 3, I think we would have to be absolutely mental to not be thinking about what that looks like in our particular product space. And I would probably imagine that if we were going to be talking about that, it would be wiser to talk about it sooner rather than later and not leave it too late and talk about it real soon. Do you get what I mean? And for the purposes of people from the marketing team who are listening to me right now, I didn't give anything away. Gears was very well received at Gamma. Yes, it was. Super approachable. Thanks to Sean. Sean Dooley, by the way, I haven't seen him for a year. Looks amazing. So if any of you are thinking, I'm stuck at home, do you know what I could do? Is I could actually eat a little bit more healthily and maybe do a few exercises around the house and shift a couple of pounds, because God knows we've all got a little bit of timber that we couldn't mind chopping down. Sean Dooley is the man. Reach out to him. He looks amazing and is training to do a triathlon now, which is flipping brilliant. I will say the slow of Guild Ball support slowed my desire to purchase anything else from Steamforged when my meta cratered. Well, look, if you ain't got people to play a game with, there ain't no point in buying the game, is there? I don't understand why what happens with one product line affects another one. But I guess it did in your particular meta. I would suggest that if people have fallen in love with the games that we've made, get them to take another look at it. God Tier is a brilliant game and has, future support, in the dev schedule and working on for at least the next year and a bit, and ongoing. Full-time developer working on that product with Sherwin and myself, in the design team. And Guild Ball's a great time to kind of get back on board with the errata coming out and with the upcoming cheeky little sneaky tests. It's a great time for experienced Guild Ball players to come back and have a little look at it. Would it be possible in the future to get a blog or video on what developers do on a typical day? I think it would be cool to see. Yeah. That'd be one of those things I think would be brilliant to do until you had to watch it back. And then I would realise what a complete, I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say bastard on the stream. I think of a different word. But I can be quite demanding, and the reason why I can be demanding is I think my job. So I don't know if everyone knows, but I call myself the creative director, but my kind of official kind of fancy dancy name is the chief creative officer, I think, something like that. Anyway, I see my job as being the representative of the customer. So my job is to look at what we do with the eyes of a customer and have those expectations that a customer should have for our particular products. So if we aren't servicing my needs, my happiness in terms of how cool it looks, how easy it is to play, how fun it is to play, how brilliant it is to paint the minis, well then we have to talk about how we've fallen short of that quality bar and what we need to do to bring it back up to that quality bar. And that does mean that you have to have robust conversations. And, we've all worked with each other long enough at Steamforged to get quite happily into some very robust conversations, and bottom them out, get to a conclusion, the dust settles down, and we're all mates, and then we carry on working. It's the fastest way for us to kind of get to a solution. So there ain't a lot of sugar coating on how we talk with each other. So I think it'll be quite nice to have a camera in the room, and then we'll all be a little bit more polite to each other. But it would just slow everything down. I don't know. I quite like that idea. I'm sure Perkins is kind of absolutely shaking his head. Matt Doran, I absolutely do apologise to any that I did offend. Is the Frontier campaign rules for Guild Ball a test for making minor guild rosters larger? Is the Frontier campaign rules? So everything we put out is a test, whether we mean it or not, because everything we put out, we actually spend a lot of time then watching, observing, and understanding how people are interacting with it and what they're doing with it. And it's should be no surprise, really, how many cool ideas you get from just listening to what people say and how they feel about things. So, the Frontier campaign rules, is it a deliberate test? I wouldn't say it was a deliberate test. Is it an opportunity for us to see what that looks like? Absolutely it is. Will we take that on board and fold that into our future thinking? Hell yeah, we always do. So, it's important to kind of take these things and play them as they're presented, and then that gives us a really clear view on the relative strengths and weaknesses of each different product that we put out. Ba, ba, ba. Kickstarter update, yeah, giant boxes. Are there any community events coming in the non-COVID future? Guildball, got it. Oh yeah, let's talk about that. Right, so a few years ago, well, when we first started Steamforged, we talked about doing SteamCon, and we did SteamCon 1 in Leeds Rugby Club, and that was brilliant, lots of fun. Then we did 2 in a pretty cool looking space that had a Star Wars cantina bar. No, that was the third one. The second one had a funny bar, but it was downstairs in a cool little space, but had terrible lighting and the food was awful. So we kind of went, ooh, after that one, we need to be a little bit more careful about these things. So let's think twice. So then we found a new location for SteamCon 3, and we got a little bit let down, if I'm honest with you. But one of the things that Steamforged doesn't do is sit there and blame other people. People weren't as thrilled, and we weren't as thrilled with SteamCon 3 as we wanted to be. And largely the buck stops with us. So, forget the promises that were made and ultimately on the day didn't really transpire out. It doesn't matter. What it did mean was that we had a much stricter set of criteria for us to plan the next SteamCon against. And once you start increasing the number of criteria that you need to tick off before you can approve a location, the harder it is. You naturally kind of narrow it down to a small field, and unfortunately, us, like a lot of people, also have like similar criteria, and some of these places get booked up years in advance. So it became increasingly difficult to find something that we thought was going to deliver the kind of experience that we wanted from a SteamCon that wasn't booked up until like the year 2028. So what we have done is also take on board and recognise some of the feedback that we've got about how difficult it is to keep everyone happy all of the time at SteamCon. Because we are a diverse company, there will be people who come to a SteamCon just to play Guild Ball. They only want to play Guild Ball, they only want to talk about Guild Ball, and they only want to listen to stuff about Guild Ball. So if you're doing a keynote and you end up talking about God Tier, well, those people, it's not really fair on those people because they don't have an interest in it. And, as much as I'd like to persuade them to, it's entirely, their prerogative. So what we think is we can give a much cooler experience and a much more game-specific experience if we do a whole series of mini-cons. So, COVID situation aside, what we were looking to do is towards the end of the summer, early autumn this year would be to open up Steamforged HQ. We have a wonderful retail space called The Forge. We can easily do events for up to 128 people. That's easily, and if we're super squeezy, we can probably go a little bit bigger than that. We'd have to check fire regs, obviously. We have acres of car parking. We have the opportunity for us to show people around, the actual design and development studio, the production studio, the warehouse, and basically, just sort of share what happens, at Steamforged with a smaller group of people who are focused on a single game. And that means that I can do things like, a Guild Ball specific keynote, and can rock up and just play Guild Ball all weekend, and we can come up with a cool campaign that we can play and some tournaments and that, and we can do a similar exercise with God Tier. We can do a cool RPG con where we play Animal Ventures, we play D&D or whatever, that's suitable for that. And we can do maybe a board game con where, obviously we'll have Dark Souls and Resi and, maybe some early sight of some Horizon stuff, and depend on where we're at in the production. But also other games, like just more of a celebration of just come and hang out and play board games. Because, at Steamforged, we we all play a lot of different games. We don't just play our own stuff. We play a wide variety of products. So really, those would probably be like the 4 sort of like headline items that I think, you know, are very easy for us to organise because it's on site. It's entirely within our control. I think we can offer a brilliant experience for people. There's 3 or 4 hotels within 5 minutes drive of our HQ, and like I say, there's plenty of parking, and because it's our own place, it's much easier for us to run some 24-hour gaming. So overall, our mini cons are going to be a lot more fun because they're going to be a lot more focused. Watch this space. Like COVID-19 has obviously thrown a spanner in the works. I'm hoping that we might all be able to kind of get together, but we're obviously going to follow government advice for as long as is necessary to make the world a safer place in that regard. So watch this space. Twitter, Facebook, follow SFG blogs, all that kind of jazz. So we heard that Guild Ball was slowing down a bit. Now I've talked about that. Some of the others, Jan will fill you in. Mini cons are a fun idea. Thank you. A mini bike is even better idea. I like the idea of a mini bike at a mini con. Yep, I can do that. Awesome about the mini events. Yep. Any chance of some of those will make their way across the pond? Look, it is a poorly disguised secret how much I enjoy coming to America, how much I love having so many friends across the pond. The hardest thing about setting something up in the States is America is just so vast. It's almost impossible to pick the right place to do stuff. What I suspect we'll do with our American friends is look to attach these mini con style affairs to larger cons, so it becomes less of a drain. So for example, we might do a Guild Ball specific mini con at Gen Con, for example, or at Origins. We might do a little RPG con, and probably look to do that. I think that's the way that will enable us to piggyback onto a convention that you guys might already be traveling for. We're conscious that you don't have huge amounts of holidays and traveling huge distances and all that kind of stuff. So interested to hear feedback in that regard, but that's the current direction of thinking. Matt, so you don't have to scroll back. Please tell us about Redline and the doggo on your wall. So the doggo on my wall is Jakey. He unfortunately died about a year and a half ago. He had a really good innings. He was 11, big fat Labrador. Loved him to bits, and still miss him. But he lives on forever because he is the inspiration behind the Brewers drink Old Jakes. That's where that comes from. Redline is one of those projects that we are still super excited about, but cannot find a way for us to give it the support that it needs. So we're in discussions with the Redline guys. And we are working with them and providing the support that we can. But right now, certainly now with everything going on, we don't have the bandwidth to do the job properly, and I think that would be a disservice to them if we try to half-arse it. So we're not going to do that. But we are, friends of all 3 of the guys behind the Redline game, and are looking to support them as best we possibly can. But right now, it's not something that's going to come onto the SFG sort of production pipeline anytime soon. I would be down for you to piggyback off Second Wind. Yeah, look, I mean, Vince, there's a huge, Chicago massive, and that would be a natural place for a Guild Ball style mini-con. I can't commit to it. It's not my job to make those decisions anymore, fortunately or unfortunately. We have a brilliant marketing team who are ramping up on all these kinds of things, and those are the people who have far more information than me. But yeah, I would definitely mention that to Charlotte on our side of things, and suggest that we at least have a conversation and see what it looks like. Jakey looks like a good boy. He was a good boy. He was awesome. And I do miss him. It still makes me sad. It last year was a tough year. Actually, I didn't realise how hard it was to lose a dog, especially because I've been working from home for 4 or 5 years, and it's unbelievable how attached you get to your doggo friends, because they are your company during the day. When you're here with no other humans around, um, you can always rely on Jake being not a million miles away, or Teddy, who is my little crazy Chihuahua, usually sitting on my desk in his basket. But he's actually he's Tedric in the first Doggo set. He's the little Chihuahua rogue, just as a thing. Um, might not be able to say, but are there plans to sell dual guild models, major and minor, separately? Dual guild models, major and minor, separately. Oh, right, because the only way you can get them in is in the minor guild box, isn't it? I don't think so. So one of the things you have to think about when you are, especially with war games as well, is SKU control. So SKU stands for stock control unit or something along those lines. It's basically each single little doodad that you sell. So a box of minis in a minor guild is a single SKU. If I take all 6 models out and sell them separately, I've now multiplied my SKU count by 6, and that historically causes you a huge amount of problems. So, and it actually makes it much harder for people to kind of get access to the models you want. Weirdly, I know, but it's been shown time and time again. So I don't think so right now. I know that we are, like a lot of companies out there, working on a new website, and I know that a lot of these models that are a little bit trickier to get hold of, we're going to be looking to put together some hardware at the HQ and some inventory and a platform for you guys to be able to access them a little bit more easily, perhaps, on a direct level. But obviously, we have to balance how we do things like that alongside our support and continual support for distributors and retailers around the world. So it's always a fine balancing act and juggling act to do. But never say never, and definitely watch Steamforged.com over the coming months as the new website starts to roll out. If Jake were one of the Dungeons and Doggos, what would his class have been? What would his class have been? It would have been, I reckon he might well have been a bard, but I think he would have been a different kind of bard insofar as he made everyone feel cool and comfortable because he was just there, and so he was a big comfort dog. So that bardic blessing would have been as a result of him just lying next to you, and he loved to put his head on people's feet because he liked to know where they are. So, and that made you feel pretty good when he did that. Right, final question apparently. One more question. I'm going to have a slurp of my tea. It's probably cold by now. Yeah, cold tea. Mason's Minor. So Mason's Minor is by far and away the hardest one. We've had 4 ideas that I can think of. Each of those ideas had some brilliant aspects to it, and some aspects that we just weren't happy with when they started to play out. And we haven't really locked in. I think the last one that we looked at in any degree of seriousness was the Bankers. That's in the fluff, in the backstory, and people have talked about that before, so that should be no real surprise. I think there's just something that we want to fix with regard to how it fits into the world. So that's a conundrum for Sherwin to kind of think about. And there was a little bit of complexity with the gameplay as we put them out. And look, the minor guilds are designed to be the kind of teams that are played by people who have got a few games of Guild Ball under their belt, because they tend to be a little bit more polarized in terms of their gameplay direction, and the specifics of their mechanics are a little bit more crunchy to kind of play. So they're not really ideal for people who are new to the game. But one of the things that we really wanted to avoid with the Bankers Guild was one system we were playing that was a lot of was super interesting from a design point of view. Actually, wasn't nearly as fun in actual play. Once we found it, in terms of sort of borrowing money to pay off and this, that, and the other. So that's still ongoing at the moment. So it's a case of Sherwin and Russ and myself resolving the visual and how it looks in the world, and then us ironing out the kinks of what could be quite a cool little core gameplay mechanic. So they're a little way off at the moment, if I'm honest with you. Right. Guild Ball organised. Right, so the last question then. Guild Ball organised play kits. Yes, there will be OP kits. I know the guys are working on them. I don't know what they look like. And I don't know how they're going to get deployed. They might just be digital only. I don't know if they are store only or direct. I do not know. I have heard multiple different things about that sort of stuff. I will find out and I will let you guys know. Or check out steamforged.com and read the blogs, or Steamforged on Twitter or Facebook, or follow me, and somehow, some way, that information will get filtered out to you as soon as possibly can. Okay, lots of people saying thank you. Thank you very much, guys. I massively appreciate you spending an hour or so with me. I can't wait to do this again. It is a lot of fun hanging out, and hopefully some of these things were interesting to you. And well, until next time, I will catch you. Well, actually, I'll catch you in about 53 minutes, where we're going to try and paint Rangosh real quick. So I better go and gargle some salt water, have another cup of tea, and go and set my cameras up. So wish me luck. I haven't turned those cameras on for a few months. So it might be the shortest stream in the world. But yeah, join me in about 53, 54 minutes, and we'll do it all again. All right. Cheers, guys. Now it's that really awkward bit where I'm trying to find the cursor, and we're all like just looking at each other going, no, you hang up, I'll hang up, you hang up, all right, I'll press the transition button. Bye.